What's up, guys? It's been a while since I recorded another video. I hope you guys have been having an amazing summer. I'm a little late to the party on this one because there was actually a trip that I went to way back earlier in the month to Palm Springs, and during that trip, I got to go see Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny. And throughout this last month, I've been working on a couple of college applications and then trying to register for classes and all that kind of stuff. So I hadn't really found the time again to do another video. I actually had some pretty good thoughts on the movie, mostly because I am a huge fan of Indiana Jones, and Raiders of the Lost Ark is probably one of my favorite movies of all time. So, uh, just the fact seeing another Indiana Jones movie, but in the big on the big screen was actually a pretty fun time for me in the theaters. And would I say that this one is probably a big one of the best Indiana Jones movies in the franchise? I probably wouldn't say so. I mean, what I will say is that it's kind of an improvement off of Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, where it feels like another classic adventure inside of the franchise, and it doesn't go as wacky as I felt like Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls did, where in that movie we got we got aliens and stuff like Shia LaBeouf swinging across trees with monkeys and sword fights on top of trucks. This movie we got stuff like time travel, which I don't think is as overblown as aliens showing up in an Indiana Jones movie, but I mean, it's still there's things in that in kind of inside of that aspect that feel a little bit weird and a little bit too like over wild, like crazy all over the place. Which is mostly because of the fact that most of the Indiana Jones lore is built around the religious beliefs like Ark of the Covenant and Holy Grail, the Holy Grail, and all that stuff. But this was a movie that I enjoyed slightly more than watching Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. I mean, even though that movie came out sometime around when I was at least like 4 years old, so I mean, 15 years ago, I didn't really see that in the theater. But I mean, just coming off as another era inside of the Indiana Jones lore, this one I I really enjoyed, and it's an interesting one because it shows Indiana Jones in obviously a different point in time where he's not exactly the same guy that we've seen in the previous couple of movies because he's an old man obviously, and it's at this point in his life where nobody really needs him anymore. So I mean, the beginning of the movie showing how he's in his last final days as this college science teacher, not science teacher, history teacher, um, and just showing the fact, like, just going from even like what we saw in Raiders of the Lost Ark, everybody's like the students flirting with Indiana Jones to just this old man that nobody's really paying attention to. Um, so just noticing a couple of those little nuances, like to what they did with Indiana Jones's character and him retiring, it kind of puts him in a bit of a sad place. And do I really want that with Indiana Jones? Still like thinking on top, like whether that's like the best side of the character. But I mean, it shows the side of the character that we've never really got to experience before. So Harrison Ford is actually able to do some. There's a different way in which like Harrison Ford does the performance inside of this movie because it shows Indiana Jones in like this sad place. This guy who's lost his son, who has a divorce with his wife. It actually like has a bit of that, a couple more emotional elements inside of this franchise because and it kind of completes almost completes an arc for the character, like mostly in certain instances. So I'll say that this movie is probably the most action heavy, the most action heavy film like since I would say the Temple of Doom. Temple of Doom has obviously for me been always been the one that has had the most action inside of it. That's gone on for nonstop. Probably the best in this franchise. This one has like a 5-6 minute long car chase or Vespa chase. Uh, and then we have this huge like plane sequence right in the third act, and we're going time travel. We're going like all crazy inside of this movie, just as crazy. But I mean, just like the action, some of the action, I'll say doesn't feel as realistic as it did before, because back in the 80s we're getting Indiana Jones like riding on top of like holding on top of tanks and like going underneath cars. Um, we start this movie off with this wide CGI shot on top of a train. Indiana Jones walking on top of trains. Like there's some things in this movie that don't look as realistic, where you can kind of see a couple of the CGI elements inside of some of these action sequences. So which makes sense, because which kind of like plays into our another a secondary problem is the fact that Harrison Ford is 80 years old. So an 80-year-old man doing a couple of these action sequences, you know that they obviously get seriously injured. So but even that doesn't function entirely as an excuse, because there's obviously some practical stunt work that you can still do with some of these movies. So when you see a CGI Harrison Ford like on top of a train, that just looks a little awkward, because especially in the 21st century, because yeah, that actually plays into one of the problems that's been going on in society. Is like not in society, like that's been going on in cinema mostly, is that most movies now rely too much on CGI, and then that kind of like messes up the enjoyment of some action sequences, especially if you're doing it in an Indiana Jones movie. Um, there's not much else simplest like things that I could talk about inside this movie. I'll say that it's nice. I think they got a nice cast. It's pretty enjoyable like that to have some of these new actors like inside of Indiana Jones movies. But I mean, I feel like there's more that they can do with the performances. The two big ones that I'm talking about is that they casted Mads Mikkelsen as the villain, and of course, which is pretty cool, because he was actually the main villain back in Casino Royale, the first Daniel Craig James Bond movie, and James Bond is kind of what the inspiration for the Indiana Jones movies were. So the fact that Mads Mikkelsen is in this movie is actually pretty interesting. But was the performance interesting? No, I can't really say that Mads Mikkelsen's performance was interesting inside of this movie. Same with, we also got an Antonio Banderas in this one. I felt like we needed a little more. He only got at least like 3-ish minutes of screen time. Antonio Banderas being in an Indiana Jones movie sounds overall like sounds like pretty cool, but I mean, not much else like that we could even say about him, because like it felt like, I don't know, I wanted a little bit more Antonio Banderas within this one. Uh, even got our character. I forgot what the actress's name was. Helena. There's a couple of like nice new dynamics with Helena inside of this movie, because showing how Indiana Jones has his own goddaughter, um, giving him like just adding some new relationships for this guy, so like just like moving a pat like add some more dynamics like to his journey mostly. Um, so it's nice also seeing Indiana Jones in World War II, starting off like where the movie starts off, because we didn't really, obviously, since the franchise starting off taking place in the 1930s, seeing Indiana Jones fighting Nazis in World War II is still enjoyable, even with the little messed up CGI that we got in the opening. But how much else I can say about this movie? I'll say that it is somewhere around a B plus. I'll say that, and it was still like it made for still like a nice little continuation coming off of the last Dial of Death. Oh, sorry, Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, and I'll say it's a little bit of an improvement over Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. I still had a pretty fun time with this movie, and mostly because I'm an Indiana Jones fan, and I hope that you guys had seen this one as well. So this was kind of a pretty nice treat for the summer. This is kind of like my second special summer summer movie experience. I mean, last year I saw Thor: Love and Thunder in Las Vegas. This year I saw Indiana Jones: Dial of Destiny in Palm Springs. Obviously, the environments in which you see these movies is actually that helps a lot with especially like the ambiance and like what you're thinking like seeing these movies. I hope you enjoyed this movie as much as I did. I wouldn't say it's like top tier Indiana Jones, but it was still enjoyable enough, even though like we went a little wacky with the time travel. Um, I missed talking to you guys a whole lot. This has been my first movie review in like a while. Keep me updated. I'll have another stop motion coming up pretty soon. And I hope you guys have an amazing rest of the summer. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.